Finding suitable accommodation is one of the biggest challenges for students who are studying in Germany. And as someone who is living in Germany's most expensive city, Munich, I have seen a lot of struggle. So in this video, I'm going to give you a full guide to student accommodation so that you hopefully have a smoother start in Germany. Now, two of the most popular options are student dorms, Studentenwohnheim, and shared apartments, Wohngemeinschaft or short WG. I'm going to focus on these two in this video since they are the most affordable and student friendly. So Studentenwohnheime or student dorms are basically housing options designed specifically for students. I'm going to share their affordable rent in just a second. Now, this type of housing is usually run by the local Studentenwerk. And the Studentenwerk is a student association that takes care of students in a specific region, or sometimes there are also private companies that offer these student dorms. And these dorms are supposed to provide affordable and practical living spaces that are close to universities. So as you can imagine, they're super popular among students. Now, there are a couple of reasons why living in a student dorm is a great choice. First, it's extremely budget friendly. So compared to renting a private apartment, dorms are way cheaper, especially in expensive cities like Munich or Frankfurt. I'm talking about the rents of 300 or 400 euros per month, and in some German cities, even 200 euros per month. And imagine spending less money on your rent than on groceries. Now, a room in a student housing facility usually looks something like this. It's not huge, but it's practical and designed to give you everything you need. So I would say it's enough space for sleeping, studying, and storing your stuff. Now, the good news is that most dorms come furnished, so you don't have to worry about buying and carrying home big furniture. You usually find a bed, desk, chair, wardrobe, and maybe a bookshelf. That said, you still need to bring your own bedding, towels, and kitchen essentials like pots, pans, and plates. Now, one more advantage is that dorms are mostly located close to the university or have great public transport connections. For example, they can be next to a train station. And one more benefit is that living in a dorm gives you a chance to meet a bunch of other students. You can make friends, build a network, and even join events that the dorms often organize. So you get the ultimate student experience in just one big package. You save money, everything is convenient, and there is basically a built-in community. Now, of course, there are also a few downsides that come with living in a dorm. And one of the biggest issues is how difficult it can be to get a spot. Because they're so affordable, a lot of students actually want to live in them, which means the waiting lists can get really long. In Munich, for example, the waiting time is currently 4 semesters. But of course, this is not the case in all cities. Munich is just a very extreme example. And usually the spots are given out on a first come, first served basis or through a lottery. So it's not always easy to secure a place. And the application process itself can also be pretty competitive. And one more thing to keep in mind is that dorms often have a lot of rules. And there can be quiet hours, you might not be allowed to invite other people, or you have to accept shared responsibilities for cleaning common areas, for example. And this can feel a bit limiting for some people, and you definitely have to give up a little bit of personal freedom. And if you're not a fan of sharing a kitchen or bathroom, student dorms are probably not for you. Now, if you're interested in living in a Studentenwohnheim, a student dorm, the first step is to check out the local Studentenwerk website for your university city. And that's where you're going to find details about available dorms and how to apply. It's really important to start early, ideally as soon as you get your university admission letter. And for the application, you usually need to provide simple documents like proof of enrollment, an ID, and sometimes financial information. Now, the other popular housing option for students is a shared apartment. In Germany, they're called Wohngemeinschaft, or short WG. So this is an apartment where each person rents their own room, but everyone shares common spaces like the kitchen, bathroom, and maybe a living room. And even young professionals who are nearly 30 years old do this very often in Germany because it's more affordable and flexible compared to renting an entire apartment on your own. So similar to the student dorms, living in a WG has a lot of benefits. And the major benefit is, of course, money, because you get to split the rent and utility bills with your flatmates. I'm also currently living in a WG myself with one more person. So the cost factor is a big thing. And on top of that, you usually have more freedom than you would get in a dorm. So you can set up your room and your lifestyle however you want. And one more big plus is the social aspect. Since you're sharing the place with others, you might get to meet people from different backgrounds and professions. It's a great way to make friends, especially when you're new in a city and don't know anybody. And it's also possible to join already existing WGs. For example, after graduation, somebody moves out of the apartment and the other flatmate or flatmates might be looking for a new person. And similar to a job, you can find these vacant WGs and apply on specific platforms, but more on that in just a second. Of course, living in a WG isn't always smooth. One of the trickiest parts is finding the right people. If your personalities and lifestyles clash, it can lead to arguments or tension, so it's important to find people you're compatible with. And trust me, there's no worse feeling than living with somebody you actively dislike. And on top of that, disagreements about shared responsibilities like cleaning or splitting bills can pop up out of nowhere. Now, one more big challenge is how competitive the rental market can be. As I mentioned, especially in big cities like Munich or Berlin. And shared apartment rooms are still in high demand, so you might have to work hard to land one. So in this case, you have to polish your online profile, be an interesting person, and also, very important, have some German skills. In case you want to learn German to succeed in Germany, I made a very detailed video about the best way to learn German as a beginner. Check it out after watching this video. I put the link to it in the video description. Now, finding a shared apartment takes a bit of effort, but there are many ways to do it. Websites like wggesucht.de, Facebook groups and university notice boards are the best places to start your search. Especially when you're new in a city, you might not have the best connections, so trying online is the best way to go. And when you're applying for a room, make sure that you write a compelling letter of motivation. Talk about your personality, lifestyle, and most importantly, why you will be a good fit as a flatmate. You might also be invited to a WG casting, which is basically an informal interview with the current flatmates. As a student, of course, you can also go ahead and apply for your own private apartment on the open market. Actually, in many cities, you can still do this for a reasonable price. For example, paying 500 euros gets you a nice one-bedroom apartment in Freiburg, but in cities like Munich or Frankfurt, this amount of money probably won't get you very far. So how much you're going to pay and which option you're going to pick really depends on your budget, location, and lifestyle. Now, this all sounds great so far, but scams are also something to watch out for, especially with ads online. And make sure to double check anything that seems too good to be true. If the rent happens to be suspiciously low, there must be something wrong with the housing. So to make things a little bit easier, start applying for dorms as soon as you get your university admission and start looking for WGs well before you move. If you can't find something right away, it's absolutely okay. There are always some short-term rentals or sublets available. They're going to be a bit more expensive, but at least you have a roof over your head. And this should give you some breathing room while you are searching. And don't forget to connect with other students, and they might even know someone who is looking for a roommate. But still, learning German will make your life in Germany 100 times easier. So next, check out this video about the best way to learn German. Love you and stay focused.